community participation. There's a lot of people here who are community leaders, not only around this table, but out there. And the more we get together as a community, and I see a lot of good ideas. I see a lot of coordination of effort, everybody getting involved, and I know, that's when things happen. That's when things really do get better, and I see a lot of that. So thank you for all of the levels of government and organizations that are doing that. With the county, we have some real challenges, especially with the indigent defense. We are always trying to find some money for indigent defense. Yesterday we had a report on, it was actually an audit that was being done on DSHS and their work with people who are civilly committed or are mentally unstable but end up going through our court system, and the fact that they are going around and around and around if DSHS and the state institution doesn't send somebody out to really get these folks evaluated within a week. They sit in our jails for a month or 2 months, and they are not being treated, their issues are not being addressed. And that is a big part of the expense, is not getting them through the system. So I will tell you that visiting Kitsap County Mental Health, they have a pilot project that they've put together which has coordinated not only mental health services, but physical health services along with the criminal justice system, and especially folks that are chemically dependent on things. Because it's very often the same people that are ending up at our emergency room doors, that are ending up in our court system, and they don't know where to get the help. So they go to a mental health, get a little bit of help with that, but actually they're having mental health because they're also having physical health problems. And the same thing with drug abuse. Very often people really turn to drugs when they don't know what else to do, and it's right there in front of them. So wraparound services, coordinating court services with mental health services, with physical health, the doctors and the nurses in the community. They had 100 people that they focused on last year, and they've been able to significantly reduce recidivism and use of the emergency room when people are, if they walk in the door in any of those places, there's wraparound services. The doctors are talking to the psychologists, they're talking to the mental health institutions, and figuring out what is really going on with that individual, give them the services they need, and a lot of those folks really do get back on track in 9, 10, 11 months. And our money would be a lot better invested that way. So I know that, it's kind of a new way of doing things. And I feel that, our behavioral health center is probably there, but it needs to be coordinated more. So I think at the county level would be a good place to start with that. I know you've made investment in mental health services, but really coordinating with the doctors. And that is something that I'm going to be working on. They're seeing successes. I keep trying to bring it up to DSHS, and I will bring it up to anybody who wants to talk about this issue. The Belfair bypass, and oh dear, I got a little upset yesterday. I apologize. I don't know who all were at that meeting, but I am very, very frustrated because we need a gas tax if we are going to get the funding we need to address the issue of the Belfair bypass, as well as if we're going to develop the Shelton Hills. Do you see what's going to happen to the traffic on Lynch Road? People are going to want to live there, they're going to want to work there, and the traffic already on 101 at Lynch Road is unbelievably increased, just in the time that I've been driving back and forth over the last 10 or 15 years. And I really hate for us at the state level to sit around and wait for the beans to be counted on how many people will die before we do something about those roads. And I believe there are many options, but I believe strongly it's got to be a coordination between what's going on at the county level in funding for roads, as well as what's going on at the state level. Nobody's going to take it on completely, but I believe that would be another task force that if we really sat down and thought about it, there are some options that could help, and have a long-term plan trying to get there to fix that Lynch Road interchange, because people are going to die, and it doesn't have to happen. Money for sewers. You're going to think this is kind of funny, probably, but marijuana money doesn't really have a place that we can guarantee a bank. Okay? And so actually I've been talking for several years about establishing a state bank, a state-run bank that might be able to really begin to deal with that money. It would have to take some influx from states, but there's one other state that did this during the Depression, which was North Dakota. And that state fared very, very well through some very tough economic times because they were able to loan money at an extremely low rate and forgive some tax to farmers during the drought and the Depression. So I believe that if we could establish a state bank, and maybe we start with money that comes in from this whole marijuana thing, it's not going to be simple, but I believe I've been talking to some people about it that are actually bankers, and they said, well, what's the problem you're trying to solve? And I said, okay, there's a little town of Oakville that's been needing a sewer system for the last 50 years. You drive through that town and it stinks. But that town is totally bankrupt and has no way of paying for a sewer system. So if we could at least put together a state bank that could give low-interest, long-term loans to smaller, rural communities that our property taxes cannot fund the same way you can in very strong growth urban areas along the I-5 corridor. We don't live along the I-5 corridor. We are never going to be able to compete with the industries that are set up along the I-5 corridor. But truthfully, I don't want to live there. I think we live in this county because we like this lifestyle. Okay, but we have a price to pay. We do have to help pay for transportation because the only reason we can live here and drive to Olympia or Tacoma is because it's a good road and it needs to be a safe road. So even though we don't have the industry here, we have got to find ways to strengthen our local economy so that we can contribute and feel like we can afford a little bit of a gas tax to fix the roads, to put in belt barriers. You can't just stop at one point and say, well, this isn't going to work, so we're never going to get there. That to me is not leadership. And that's kind of what I was trying to say yesterday. It'll be tough. It'll be really tough. But I know that there's enough intelligence here. I know there's enough vision. There are a lot of great ideas. We have our challenges. And I want to partner with you at the state, but it has to be a partnership. I can't just do it at the state level. The other senator and representative have to really get on board with it and push an idea forward, figure out what works, and then really work closely with the local governments. Because you're right, you're the ones that have to do it. We send out all kinds of laws, you have to do it. Try not to send out a law without paying for it, but things grow. Even though it didn't cost too much 50 years ago, it costs a lot now. Okay, so I'm very excited about the Transit Community Center. I still run into people who don't really know what's going on there, but I think over the next year it's going to be very, very much something that people can see. I think it is a big part of developing the downtown, making it a place where people want to be and just sit around and enjoy and go and learn and have community meetings. And so I'm very excited about both ends of the city that you're working with. As a transit center, people can come and go, but also have bicycles, and parking is going to be really critical. And I know the city is going to be very challenged with that, but I think it is a real opportunity in the city center. I don't know, is anybody here from transit? No, they shouldn't. We should.
We're all members of the board.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't see some people that should be here. Anyway. I remain focused on education just because there's so much to do. There's so much push to make our schools so much better, to have our teachers have the skills and the knowledge they need to help get every kid graduated, ready to go to college or community college or get a career in technical skills. And so I can see that one of our biggest challenges is just to keep them in school. And so a bill that I've had last year, a lot of people very excited about, costs some money, but it's dropout prevention. And Kim Clint with Mason Matters has really shown us the way of doing this and was involved in helping us write the bill last year that had to do with wraparound services A lot of kids drop out of school not because they don't want to go to school, but because they don't have the car to get there, or the parents are working and so they have to stay home and take care of little brothers and sisters, or they're living on the streets and they've got to find a job and such they can feed themselves. And that is something that this community can do something about. So I will be sponsoring this bill again. The thing about using the school system as a focal point for delivering services to especially kids that need it is that they do come there. And they come there when they're in kindergarten, their parents walk in the door, and parents have to know that the school is a place where they can get some help, whether that is with just getting money or some way to get back and forth from school, how important it is to read to their kids, how important it is for them to show up in class. One of the biggest indicators that kids are not going to make it is when, even at 3rd grade, when they're absent. You can pick those same kids, and when they're 16, they're going to be sitting out on the streets. If we can do something about it early on, we can make a big difference. And we had a great talk this morning by United Way, and Tamara Ingersoll is working very hard on our early childhood services, quality services, and we know it will make a difference. It may take a little time for those 2-, and 3-, and 4-year-olds to stay in school when they're 16, but they get a lot better chance of it if they're successful all the way through those first years in school. So I'll be working on that. And the other thing that is immediately coming up, and I think probably will be a bill that we pass, we've identified summer learning loss as one of the biggest reasons that kids fail in school. And you know, we have a lot of programs that really try to help kids through the summer, and kids from poverty are much more impacted by not having anything to do through the school in the summer. So Schools Out Washington is going to help with it. We are hoping that we can bring businesses and industry, maybe the shellfish industry, maybe the tribes, the PUD. There's other places where kids in the summertime can get more hands-on learning and connect with their community. And Schools Out Washington is setting up some summer enrichment programs. It's not just classes the same, but hopefully have an instructed teacher in that, working with the business or the industry, that also kids will get credit, because a lot of them drop out because they just have missed some credits and they need those credits. So it's kind of a new idea, but it's trying to find a way to use those summer hours to really help kids succeed. And oh, by the way, the Sheriff's Department, I'm sure can help with that too. So we'll be talking together. So those are some of the things I'm working on. It's kind of all over the board. I really appreciate getting together with you guys today, and hopefully if some of the things I've talked about sound like things you want to work on a little bit more, I'd be happy to do that. And again, the port, that Tom Foster, I still get Christmas cards from him. He's been down in Oregon, but he ran the Puget Sound and Pacific Railroad. For many years, he's a mover and a shaker, but he knows big railroads as well as little short line railroads, and he knows who to talk to and how to talk to them about it. So I will help with that. Tom Foster, get you coordinated with him. Thank you.
David, I think you're next. I'll start. I'll reintroduce myself. My name is David Westbrook. I'm the governor's South Sound and Olympic Peninsula regional representative. I have not had a chance to meet many of you yet, so I do really appreciate the opportunity to come listen today, hear the priorities. I will be taking these back to the governor and our policy staff. I will be finding time to meet with all of you in the future. This will be my first session with the governor. We are gearing up next week. Will be the governor's first State of the State address, so we will be releasing his legislative priorities at that point. Right now, I think it's safe to say, I don't think anyone's surprised the governor will remain focused on a statewide transportation package. He has been all year. That will continue into next year. On a real top level, you should expect to see proposals on education, healthcare, children's wellness, mental health, probably some proposals on income inequality and helping our small businesses as well. So I have a few cards. I've quickly run out, so maybe we can share. I can emails and shoot my contact information out to anyone who wants it. But again, thank you for the chance to be here, and I'll take this back to the governor. I look forward to working with you all in the future.
Again, I'm David Brummer with Congressman Bentek's office. I'd like to thank Steve for the invitation today to come and listen to what's going on here. For those who aren't aware, Congressman Heck is the 10th Congressional District, which is the city limits of Shelton and then southeast of 101. So it's not quite all of Mason County. Some things Congressman Heck is working on, as well as the transportation improvement package, he's a big supporter of. And on the federal level, what's been touched on briefly is the Marijuana Business Access to Banking Act. Is something that he's introduced and working on so that financial institutions can accept monies from cannabis industry. And a couple other things as well. Congressman Heck has met with Mayor Krantz regarding the sewer project and trying to find some possible federal grant money to help with that, and then also the Shelton Downtown Improvement Project that's coming up. And but I'd really like to take the opportunity to come and listen and take these to Congressman Heck.
Tommy Bauer from Senator Cantwell's office. I just wanted to give a quick update. First off, thank you so much for extending the invitation to us. It's lovely to come out to these things once a year. I wish they would happen more often. But I just wanted to give you guys a quick update about how things are going back in the other Washington. As some of you may have learned, the Senate recently advanced the extension of unemployment insurance. The initial test vote happened yesterday, and it passed on bipartisan lines 60 to 37. So that'll likely pass the Senate either later on this week or early next week when the majority leader schedules that vote. Earlier this week, the Senate also confirmed Janet Yellen as the next Federal Reserve Chairman, and she'll be taking the seat relatively soon on that. As far as the Obama administration's priorities moving forward this year, we're expecting to see some discussions moving forward on poverty and income inequality and where that stands in the nation. There's been discussions about raising the federal minimum wage to $10.10 an hour. We will be interested to see how those proposals develop in both houses of Congress as the year advances and conversations shift to more activities in the district. As well, in addition to minimum wage, there's been discussions about advancing, Representative Haig mentioned earlier about education in pre-K. There's been discussions by the administration about moving forward a universal pre-K system throughout the country. So those are certainly ambitious proposals, and we'll have the due diligence in both houses, and we're excited to see those as those move forward. As far as Senator Cantwell's priorities here in the Senate this year, I know she's taken an active role when it comes to our ports and moving forward freight mobility and advancing some of the causes of that when it relates to our ports as well as our industries all throughout the counties in Mason County as well as throughout the state. She's taken an active role in making sure our shipbuilding industry is something that continues to be an economic driver throughout the state. I mean, it's an industry that's taken quite a bit of hit lately, and we'd love to see more of a involved role in that moving forward, as well as I think the port of Shelton mentioned earlier about the FAA Next Gen system that you guys are implementing. We're very curious to know how that goes. The senator was very instrumental in ensuring that that was a part of the 2012 FAA reauthorization, and that's a sort of pet project of hers, and we want to do what we can to help and see how that gets implemented. But as far as our legislative agenda, I think it's going to continue to evolve as the session grows, but we're definitely, we'll take what you guys have mentioned today and bring it back to her as soon as we see her next. So thank you so much, and I'll be around afterwards to talk to people individually.
Mr. Dack is
Yeah, I don't know, Mr. Joe Dacca and Rohan Shrikande with Derek Kilmer's office. We represent the rest of Mason County outside the city limits. And a couple things Commissioner Jeffries mentioned. We're sort of working to put a coalition of folks together to, as we have this opportunity with a potential transportation package along the Highway 3 corridor up from Mason County all the way up to the shipyard in Bremerton. Hopefully trying to solve a few problems. One, getting more places for people to go to work in Mason County and Kitsap County in and around Skia. That's the largest contiguous area of industrially zoned land really on the west side of the Narrows Bridge. So it's a huge opportunity, not just for folks in Kitsap County, but also in Mason County as well. And the hope there is that you sort of reduce some barriers for some folks to invest there, and you have places for people to work, and also hopefully have some hookups for some infrastructure projects nearby. That's sort of our thought, and it's still early, but that's one of the reasons we're trying to put this coalition of folks together to advocate for some of these projects. And obviously a big one is the Belfair bypass, and then along some smaller projects along the corridor that can help with congestion and freight mobility, so that hopefully we can have some more major industrial employers in addition to the United States Navy. In terms of Derek's priorities, he's met with a lot of you, but the first one is sort of a do no harm to the economy, and that means passing regular budgets. That means passing regular appropriations. I think in our area it means extending unemployment insurance, because there's a lot of folks that rely on that, and the job market is not as such that we can walk away from these folks yet. So another thing for this area is the shellfish industry. Obviously, it's a major boon for the economy here in Mason County, and we had some problems with some exports to China recently, and so one of the roles that our office took was helping to communicate between the State Department of Health and the State Department in dealing with China to help sort of identify some of these issues and making sure that they know that our products are still good coming from Washington State, and that our industry isn't hurt there. In addition to that is making sure that our shellfish industry has a clean product, and that's due in part to a healthy Puget Sound and Hood Canal. And so Derek, along with Representative Heck, have started a Puget Sound Recovery Caucus, which is focused on investing in the cleanup of Puget Sound and keeping Puget Sound healthy, and Hood Canal as well. So that's a focus for us. And the last thing that I'll mention is Derek has started, basically brought together a group called the Olympic Peninsula Collaborative, which is primarily focused on bringing together industry and environmental advocates to get some consensus around timber policy on the Olympic National Forest, to help drive some additional harvest in a sustainable way that helps us get closer to the goals set within the Northwest Forest Plan. And so that's still in the very early stages, but something that Derek has spent a lot of time on in his first year in Congress, trying to help drive some consensus and help put some timber jobs back to work, and also help create some more healthier, sustainable forests. Because if you do the right ecological thinnings in those forests, they're a lot healthier and produce better ecological habitat for all types of species. So those are some of the things we're working on. Again, I'll echo the comments of the rest of the folks here, saying thanks for the great attendance here and for allowing us to be here and listen, and we can take this back to our bosses. So.